Hello, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Hear you? Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, can you all hear me and see me clearly?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Okay, that's good. That's good. All right. Should we just first of all begin with a bit of introduction for everyone, so I know who has joined today? So if you want to introduce yourself, just unmute yourself and you can introduce.
Okay.
Okay, who wants to go first?
Yes. I'm first.
Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good
See
afternoon.
you here. Yes, my name is Agung from Erlangga University, Indonesia.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you too.
Okay, Padmini. Padmini, do you want to introduce yourself? Are you able to introduce? We cannot hear you. Okay, maybe let's move on to someone else. Anand.
Vidy, thanks so much for providing us a platform today. And this is Enes. I've completed my master's degree in accounting from Australia. I'm residing in Sydney just for now.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
Arif, do you want to introduce yourself? Arif, you there? Okay, let's move on. PG Rish. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning, sir.
Yep.
Myself, Girish B. Presently, I am doing PhD from Manodmaya Sundarnara University in Criminology Department.
Okay.
Besides, I am working as a Deputy Commander Government of India, Ministry of Home Affairs.
All right, cool.
I express my extreme gratitude for creating such a platform for doing the research scholars.
Thanks, Girish.
Thank you, sir.
Smita?
I'm from Lucknow, and I'm teaching in University of Lucknow. This platform was provided to me by Neha Mishra, and I just wanted to see how it is, and she was speaking highly about you.
Okay.
So I think we'll be benefiting a lot from understanding more.
All right, cool. Thank you. Who else is? Padmini, you there? Do you want to try once again? No. Okay. Anolit?
Hello everyone. I'm Bernard PhD.
Okay. Nemesh?
Yeah, hi, I'm Patel. Currently, I'm in Ahmedabad, and I'm doing research from ICFA University.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Now let me introduce myself. Has everyone introduced? Have I missed anyone? I think some people might have dropped off. I'm not sure. Okay. Anyway, so let me give you a little bit background about myself. My name is Vidyasagar or Vidy. I'm based in Perth. I work as an associate professor in Curtin University, and I'm also the director of Blockchain Research and Development Lab. So my background has been primarily technology. I have a background in computer science and software engineering. My PhD was in cybersecurity, and currently I lead the research activities in my lab on blockchain technology. So what I wanted in this session was to kind of get a chance to interact with researchers like yourselves, and also to kind of keep this a very interactive session and answer any questions that you may have in regards to doing research, especially the theme for this session today is on systematic literature reviews, which is one of the first steps that you would do as part of your research. So before I begin, I would want to show you one thing that kind of outlines the value of doing a good systematic literature review. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now for you to Okay, can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so what I want to show you, or what I want to highlight by showing my Google Scholar profile is if you look at my highly cited papers, a lot of them are actually literature reviews, literature review articles that I have done in the past. So, for example, this paper, a survey of digital image watermarking techniques. I published this during my PhD time, and you can see it has got quite a bit of reviews quite a bit of citations that have resulted because of that article. Similarly, wireless multimedia sensor network technology is again a literature review article. Computational approaches for emotion detection, content quality assessment frameworks. So all the top papers that you see listed on my Google Scholar profile are all literature review articles. So which is one of the things as a research scholar is you should focus on getting one really good literature review article from your research, either for MPhil or for your PhD. So whatever research you are doing, ideally it should be we should have really one good literature review paper. Okay. So how many of you already have a literature review paper, and how many of you are currently writing or planning to write?
I have one for recently. I'm doing systematic literature review.
Okay, and what is that topic on? What is the topic of your review?
Because my major is an accounting, so I try to systematically review about accounting and the narcissism.
All right. Okay. I actually have one student who is about to graduate, and his research is on accounting information systems. So, yeah. Okay, that's good. Anybody else?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is Abu.
Oh, hi, Abu.
Hi. How are you?
Good, good.
Yeah. I didn't introduce myself actually.
Oh, didn't you? Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. My name is Hi everyone. My name is Abu Bakar Mohammed. I'm a PhD candidate from Curtin University, Australia. I'm currently doing a systematic literature review on blockchain technology adoption in the food supply chain.
Thank you, Abu.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to add something? Say something? All right. Okay. So I think what I wanted this session to be was to be interactive. So I would want you to ask me questions, and then I can provide an answer to your questions. So who wants to go first?
Okay, I think me again, Prof.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I'm still confused. I'm still confused about the difference between literature review and the systematic review. What is the main difference of literature review and systematic review? Because when I read all of the journal for systematic review, there are some methods to describing the information about the collecting journals, something like that.
Yep.
Okay, what is the difference between the literature review and systematic review? The main difference.
I think systematic literature review is a literature review, and in some disciplines, a systematic literature review approach is kind of not followed. But if you look into management discipline, business disciplines, or health, systematic literature review is what is kind of an acceptable standard, so to say. And ideally, my opinion is that a literature review has to be systematically done. And the reason for doing a systematic literature review is you cover all possible angles to completing a literature review. If you think about what is actually why you are doing a literature review, the reason for doing a literature review is to ensure that uh, nobody else has done research that you are intending to do. So it is kind of ensuring or making sure that you don't waste your time quickly starting to research something without having a thorough understanding or background of what all has been done in your field. So for that particular reason, doing a systematic literature review is very essential. And if you think about it, why is it called as a systematic literature review? Because you're following a method, a process, to be frank. And what is that method? What is that process that you're following? And that is identifying how you are going to search for literature. So if you do not have a plan, you can randomly search something that you think is relevant and look to see if you get any results or not. But what you should ideally be doing is coming up with a strategy to search the literature. Yeah, because if you see just within my field or my area, there are kind of 1,000+ conferences happening around the world in a year. It is really not possible to read all the literature that is out there. So you have to find out a way in which you can select the most relevant and most valuable literature. And one of the things that I tell my students is look for the ranking of the journals or the conferences from which you are going to start collecting research articles for your research. And one of the thing is, when you are doing a lit review, you want to start your research, or you should base your research on something that is from a good source, so if you are starting your research and you choose the problem that has been highlighted by in a research, in a journal, or in a conference which is not very reputed, so which means that the quality of the research that is becoming the basis for your research is itself weak, and it will become a problem later on when you want to publish the research that you have done. What would happen is, when the reviewers look at what is your starting point, where did you identify your research problem, and they look at unknown journal or unknown conference, they would like, why should I believe that that research is really fundamentally useful or important or really valuable? So that is one of the reasons why doing a systematic review is important. So broadly speaking, in a systematic review, the first thing that you do is identify what are the keywords that describe your research. So you make a list of these different keywords for your for doing a search. So it is a very systematic way. I have decided that I will list, or I will start with say 10 keywords to identify or to search for the literature. You should record those keywords in a table. You run the search using those keywords and see how many results you get. You should record that results as well. So for a particular keyword, for example, blockchain, when I searched this, I got 100 or 200 results from Google Scholar. I got say 50 results from Web of Science. And you also should search on a number of different databases. Don't just limit to one. Yeah, so you normally what I do is I will start off with Web of Science as the first, because that database itself is very screened a lot. I mean, the best quality journals and conferences are only indexed in that. So I know that if I select papers that have come from Web of Science search, those are going to be good quality. Yeah, so that is the first. Next, I jump to Scopus. So Scopus has a little bit bigger database, a larger index. So it has taken more journals, more conferences. So you will get a little bit more results from web compared to Web of Science. So you have to get a difference. So from Web of Science, the results that you may get from Web of Science may also be the same number of results, may also be included in the results that you get from Scopus. So you have to get rid of those duplicates and kind of make sure that your starting is really strong, your footing is really strong for your research, and that's why the systematic approach is much better. The other approach, which like what you said, just a literature review, it does not follow these principles, it does not follow this process or this methodology. So it is just kind of randomly selecting papers for a particular keyword, not keeping a record of which keywords were used, and so on. So that is the key difference. And I'll share you a very interesting example. Just happened to me last week. I had submitted a paper for review. It was a literature review paper on blockchain and Internet of Things topic. And one of the reviewers recommended, or the reviews that I got, the reviewer recommended that I should remove the keyword, the keywords that I have used to search the articles and so on. And I have a strong belief or suspicion that this particular reviewer who has reviewed my article actually does not know about doing a systematic literature review. Otherwise, he or she would not have recommended that very important part of literature review process to be removed from the paper. So I had to argue that no, that is not the right way. I'm not going to remove that part from my paper. It is going to stay there, because that just shows the rigor of the research that we have taken. It is not just randomly we are selecting papers and writing a literature review. Does that answer your question? You are on mute.
Okay. I think the best part when we do systematic review is to perform the step-by-step the processing of systematic review, like to identify keywords and then the number of literature, the number of article, and then the analysis. So the next, my next question is for the analysis. Systematic review is similar with content analysis, Prof. Is it similar with content analysis?
Yeah, you could compare that with content analysis. In a content analysis, which is say a qualitative research approach or a methodology, you are using some content. It could be a secondary data that is you have gathered, or it could be some form of data that is already out there and you are analyzing it. So in the context of a literature review, that data is the literature papers or the abstracts and the titles of the articles that you have reviewed. In case of content analysis, the content analysis would be any data that you are using. So I'll give you one example of one of my paper. It's strange, for some reason this paper is not being shown on Emerald. But just give me a minute. Okay, so I don't know for what reason this paper is not coming on the ITP, Information Technology and People journal. Can you all see this, the screen that I'm sharing?
Not yet.
No? Okay.
No.
Okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this paper, a process model for identifying online customer engagement patterns on Facebook brand pages. So this was a paper that we published last year, 2018. And in this paper, what we have done is we have taken online content from Facebook brand pages of banks, and we downloaded the comments and the discussions that were happening on a few of the Facebook brand pages of banks, and then we evaluated that content. So that is an example of content analysis. And based on content analysis, in this case, in this paper, we came up with a process model. So we came up with a theoretical framework, a model that explains how customers explain the customer journey, how customers move from initially just knowing about the brand to becoming a loyal or a follower of that particular brand. So we had to look and scout through the contents, identify customers' comments, what they have made, and try to come up with a model that kind of fits or explains this process. So if you're doing content analysis, I would recommend you have a look at this paper. This paper also received the Best Paper Award from Emerald for 2019. So it's a really good article for you to consider if you want to study, if you want to see content analysis. Okay, any other questions from anyone? Okay, let me ask you some questions then, because I gave you the option and nobody wants to take that for asking me questions. Okay, so just with wave of your hands, if you can, tell me how many of you are in your first year of your research or your PhD or MPhil. Okay, one. Anybody else? You can wave through WebEx itself. That's also fine. Okay, Rajesh, Girish. Girish is also first year. Okay. Anybody else first year? Okay. Who is in their second year? No, nobody in the second year. Third year? Final year? No? Okay. All right. What else should I talk about then today? So maybe there are a couple of students who are in the first year of your PhD. So I'll give you some tips or some suggestions that I think if you follow, probably would be very helpful for your research. And one of the things that I suggest for PhD scholars or PhD or MPhil scholars is doing a PhD is the 3 years or 4 years of your PhD is the time that you should build your, I mean, you have to do research, that's for sure. That is, everyone is expecting that you would do that. But what is it that you can do more than just doing your research? And what I think you should be doing is you should take these 3 to 4 years to build up your career, build up your profile, build up your brand as a researcher in your topic, in your topic area, in your field of research. So at the end of when you finish your PhD, people should know you. You know, so when they pick up a topic, say accounting, like my friend here, he's doing accounting. People should know that if it is a specific topic in accounting, this is the person. He has spent 3 or 4 years of his life doing this research. You should be known as an expert. Yeah. So one is that thing. What you could also do is think about how you are going to build awareness about your research or about yourself, or how you're going to build your brand. You know, what is it that you could do to promote yourself in the industry? So how many of you have a LinkedIn account? How many have a LinkedIn account? Okay, one. Only one? Nobody else? Okay, so first thing that I think you should do after this session today is set up a LinkedIn account. Yeah, and try to build up your network. How you are going to, and start sharing some information about your research or any news that is related to what you're doing, and promote that knowledge, that value to your network, because network is very important. You know, it may be that you start your research now. In 3 years' time, it is a long time in which you can really build a good network with a lot of researchers around the world, and that will create opportunities for you. rather than just doing your research sitting in your office or in your university. Make your virtual presence felt outside outside of your just within your university. Let other people know you are there, you are an expert in that area, in that field. So that is one thing I would strongly recommend to all of you if you have not been doing that. If you see, I'm personally quite active on LinkedIn. And during my PhD, there was nobody to tell me that I should be doing that. So I did not do that during my time. And it was not that LinkedIn was not there. It was there. It's just that I didn't realize the value that LinkedIn or other social networks can create. And even I'm learning. I don't say that I know everything about everything. So recently, I started my own YouTube channel. I could have done that 10 years ago. I mean, YouTube was there 10 years ago. But I didn't take that initiative, or I didn't know how to do it, and so on. So, but now I have started. So now if I can start something at this stage in my career, why not you, when you are just about in your starting of your PhD? So I would strongly suggest building your online presence. It could be through LinkedIn, or you could start your online, maybe a blog or a website where you can start collecting information and stuff like that. Start sharing with people, so people kind of start relating with you for that particular topic. What else could you do? Have you attended any conferences so far? Academic conference? Okay, so attending a academic conference is also integral part of your PhD or your research experience. And there is a reason why this is important, is because you meet like-minded people. You meet people who are in the industry, who are in your industry, in your area, and that will help you, because after you finish your graduation, after you finish your PhD, maybe you want to apply for a job, you want to get an academic position or a position in the industry. Having met people in that field is going to help, because they may be on the selection panel. You don't really know whether or not how or where people you meet can be helpful. So that is also very important. And if you are planning to attend, I mean, in the current scenario, there will be no physical conferences, at least for this year. But in the next year, if you are planning to attend a conference, I think attending a conference is also, how to say, it is an art. You have to make most of what you can do at the conference. So normally when I would attend a conference, firstly I will see who else is attending the conference. So, and I would kind of decide that, yeah, I think I want to network with these 5-6 people because they have something that I'm currently doing related to what I'm doing, or it is something that I can work with them on that, on something. So it can be a mutually win-win kind of a situation. So preparing, attending a conference is easy, but the preparation that is required before attending the conference is important. And that's where the LinkedIn also comes in to help. So what I would do is, if there are any people that I want to attend, that I want to network with, or I want to introduce myself, I would connect with them on LinkedIn if they have a LinkedIn profile. And I'll give a little bit, when you send the invitation on LinkedIn, you have the option to send a note with the LinkedIn, not just select add contact, but you can give a little bit description. So use that to your advantage. You can say that I'm going to be attending this conference. My presentation is on this and this date, and I saw that you are also working in similar area. I would like to meet you in person. So give some people, give the conference participants some information about yourself and a potential meeting that you can have at the conference. So that is also a very interesting thing that you could do as part of the conference attendance. I normally like to network. I always will network with all the keynote speakers because they are most well-known people in the industry, and it is always good for you to tell them about what your skills are, what your capabilities are. So somewhere in the back of their mind, they will think that, oh yeah, I remember I met somebody at the conference and he was telling me, or she was telling me, this is the research area. I have a new project which is about to start, and I would want some help, or I would want somebody to work with me. Maybe I can contact him or contact her. So that is the value, you can get from being active on networks or building your connections. So it is for some people, it may be that you feel it is you're not very comfortable going to or talking to people, or you may feel shy, or you are kind of like, oh, these people are very senior in my field, how can I talk to them? This may be a thing that is possible. Even I had experienced something like this during my PhD days. But it is you can get rid of that fear. You can easily get rid of the fear, and once you do it one time, the next time it becomes easier, and the next time it becomes even easier. Just imagine when you were a kid and you had to learn how to ride your bicycle. You will fall. You will not get the balance right away. You will drive for some time, and then maybe you will fall, and then you will get up and then do it again, and see how you build up your skills. So I think it is same thing with networking as well. You just need to do it, and you will get good at it. So if any of you here listening to me are kind of feeling a bit have that kind of a feeling in relation to networking, I would suggest just do it. Give it a try. Give it a shot. I think will definitely help you all in it. Okay, I've got some question here because I'm also live on YouTube. So there's somebody asking me a question on YouTube as well. So I'll answer that. So the question here is, what are the major components of a literature review paper? Okay, so I think I covered a little bit earlier as well, but the core or the main components of a literature review paper is, I'll probably just give you a kind of a structure for the paper. What are the main headings that you need to have in a literature review paper for it to be complete? And this is what we as reviewers will look at when we are reviewing a literature review paper. So starting a literature review paper, it should be a literature review, a title of your paper with your name, with your affiliation, followed by abstract, where you will, and writing an abstract is an art in itself, and I'll not go into much detail of that in this session, but writing an abstract is something that can decide whether or not your paper is accepted or rejected. A lot of times reviewers will judge the paper by looking at the abstract and introduction, and they can get a feel of the quality that they can expect when they read the rest of the paper. So you should really spend a lot of time, sufficient time to do the abstract. So abstract, then followed by keywords, maybe 5 or 6 or 7, depending upon where you are going to submit your research paper. You should comply with their requirements. Then introduction section. Then there's one more thing which people or students get confused. A literature review paper should also have a section of literature review. And so what does that mean? Why would a literature review paper have a literature review section? So it is confusing for some young early researchers. So why do we need a literature review section? So when you're writing a literature review paper, you have to tell the audience or your readers that in this field there are 6, 7, or 10 other literature review papers that are already published, and these papers focus on these different things. Yeah, so the objective of the previous papers is this. However, what I'm going to present to you in this paper is a different dimension. I'm trying to answer a different question using this literature review. So having that literature review section in a literature review paper is extremely important, because it kind of shows that you have done the background work and you're not just randomly writing up a new literature review paper just for the sake of writing it. So that is very important to have that in mind. So that is the second section, literature review. The third section is what I mentioned earlier, is the systematic methodology. So how you are going to do your literature review, you have to explain that process. Yeah, so what keywords you are going to use, how are you going to which databases you are going to search for your research, how many papers you are going to collect, how are you going to screen the papers. So if you do a query and that results in say 1,000 papers, so in that scenario you need to have some way to decide which papers you will select and which papers you will not. So some filtering criteria, selection criteria has to be there. So you have to explain what that selection criteria is, based upon which you are going to accept or reject the papers. So that after that step, you have a set of papers that you're going to review. So it could be maybe 100 papers, 200 papers. I've seen research papers with even 400, 500 papers. So in fact, there is no upper limit of how many papers should be there. If you have a large team of researchers to work with, you can have 500-600 papers in a literature review as well. So that is the third step. So fourth step is the most challenging part. Here what you need to do is you got to decide how you are going to evaluate this literature. So let's assume you have 100 papers. You have shortlisted 100 papers for your literature review. How are you going to divide them in some logical order or some classification, so that the remaining sections of your paper are structured properly? So, and that would come based upon when you're reviewing the literature. Okay, so you look at the title of the paper and the abstract, and you can get an idea that, okay, this paper kind of fits in one category. Let's make category 1, category 2, and say 10 categories to begin with. As you start reading the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th paper, you can try to see whether this paper fits in category 1, category 2, or category 3. And over time, you can even merge some categories, or you can even extend some categories, add some more categories. So that is possible, and that is very important. And if you see some of my papers, I very focus a lot on these categories, because the rest of the paper then continues on that category. I'll show you one example of another paper where I have followed that. Can you all see this?
Not yet, sir.
How about now?
Yes. Not yet. Yeah, okay. You can see.
Okay, cool. So this is a paper. Again, you can see literature review, evolution and future directions. This was written by, this research was done by one of my student who was just a master's student only. So this research is only done in 3 months. Yeah, so it's not a PhD or a master's level research, MPhil level research. It's just purely master's student doing research on this topic. So here you can see the papers that we have selected in this literature review and the number of papers and from how many years. But what I want to show you more importantly is this figure. Can you see this figure? Yeah, okay. So this is how I have classified the research. Yeah, so these are the different categories in which the papers would be added. So, and these categories, or we call it a taxonomy here, comes based on the process that I just now explained. We looked at the first paper and we created a category. We looked at the second paper, we created another category. And then we kind of realized that after reviewing all the papers, these would be the best categories that we can have. Okay, so, and one thing that I like to do in a literature review is structure your paper, structure your rest of the paper based upon these categories that you have designed. Okay, so if you look at my the sections from now on, the detailed literature analysis section, I stick to those subcategories. For example, 2.1 is prosumer communities, which was this one, the higher category, and then another category here. And then subcategories, definitions, prosumer roles, and so on, that are here. Okay, so 2.1.1 is a subcategory of this, 1.2, 1.3, and so on. So this structure helps the reader to kind of follow your paper in a very structured way. I go one step further in this. If you look at the future work section of this article, the future work also I structure using the same headings. So what is the future work required in this subtopic? What about this one, and so on? So that's why that initial categories or taxonomy that you design for your literature is very important, because it kind of flows through the rest of the paper, and then that gives a very nice flow to the paper that you are writing. Okay, and you can see it's an open access paper. You can download it. I'll share the link. Where is? Chat. Okay, so this is the link. You can study this paper, or you can use it as a guide for if you are going to write your paper. So this will give you a very good structure to follow. Okay. Any other questions from anyone else?
Okay, me again, Prof.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello.
Yes. Please go on.
You said before that the systematical review must logical order and the classification of literature. So, how many numbers of literature we have to synthesize or we have to analyze in our project? And the next question is, should we read all journal or article or just searching what is the solve to problem our research questions? That's it.
Okay. All right. So a very good question. So I'll just repeat the questions in case others did not hear it. So the question was, how many papers should be you should have in your literature review? And the second was, sorry, what was the second question? I forgot.
The second question is, should we read all?
Yeah, okay.
Should we read all?
And the second question is, should you read all articles, or what is the kind of is there any tips or tricks on how you can best utilize your time for reading an article? Okay, so the first question, how many papers you should have for your research article, for your literature review paper? So there is no fixed number that I could say that you should have 100 articles, 200 articles, or so on. But what I would suggest is, okay, the reason I cannot give you a number because every topic is different, and the research that may have happened in that topic could vary. So some topics may be very limited research has happened. You may struggle to find even 50 or 60 papers. And some topics there would be extensive research that is happening, and you would realize that, oh, you have 1,000+ papers. So what should you do? So in that scenario, what I suggest is look at your research question. What is it that you want to find out by doing the literature review? So one thing that I should also have mentioned is literature review is not just summarizing the literature. The reason you are doing a literature review is you're trying to find out an answer to a question, and the question could be depending upon your topic, could be what is the recent progress that has happened in a specific small niche area. So depending on that, the answer would vary. But I would say a good literature review for a PhD level research should at least have 200 plus to 200 to 250 papers in the literature review article. So keep that as a benchmark. It is not really a high benchmark. For example, this paper that I just now showed you, this had 111 papers. Okay, and that was just a work of a master's coursework student, not even a research student. So if you look at that, you can kind of get an idea of what is required. And the idea, and like I said before, you want to make sure for yourself, not for anybody else. What you need to make sure is that you don't miss out on any important literature, which may later you realize that, oh, you did the research, but that was already done by somebody even before you started. So you don't want to be, you should avoid that trap. And so the effort that you put in at the beginning is very important for that matter. So 200, 250, 300 doesn't matter. You should feel comfortable that you have studied enough. And so this is at a conceptual answer to your question. Now, what is the practical answer? How would I know? So what I do is whenever I pick up a new paper to review, I will check the reference list of that paper. And if I start looking and see, okay, I have read this paper, I have read this paper, I have read this paper, it kind of gives me an idea that I have reached a level of saturation, which means I have read enough. That is a practical way to identify whether you have enough papers or not. Okay, so that is to answer your first question. Now the answer to your second question is whether you should read the entire paper or how should you best read it. So remember, I told you during the session that writing an abstract is very important. It is like an art to write an abstract. And the reason why I said that is because if you read the abstract, you should be able to understand or learn most of the contribution of that paper. So a well-written abstract tells you everything. So if you are if you're writing your literature review article, you pick up a research paper, you read the abstract, and you kind of still figure out, oh, I'm not really sure what this paper is talking about. That is probably the first hint that it is not a really good paper. And you probably get rid of that from your list, because a well-written paper would have a well-written abstract as well with it. So keep that in mind. And on most occasions, the abstract should include the problem that is being solved, the method or the approach, how that problem is being solved, what was the solution, and what were the findings from that solution. Okay, so those are the at least four things that should be there in your abstract. And by reading those four things, you will kind of judge. You can kind of get all the information that is required to summarize that paper for your literature review. So you don't need to read the entire paper. Okay. Another thing that I do is many a times the third bit, which I mentioned in the abstract, which is how the research is done, the methodology, is probably not very well, not clearly mentioned in the abstract. So in that case, what I will do is I will open up that PDF document or that article and do a quick search for a few keywords that may help me to answer that question. I will search words like qualitative, quantitative, mixed methods, interviews. So this will pick up text, and then I can just read the text around that vicinity, and I may be able to get that answer. So that is again kind of a tip that you can do to kind of speed up your literature review process. And also, whenever you're doing a lit review, have a habit of recording all this information in an Excel spreadsheet or any other tool that you are comfortable with, but somewhere where you can record this, so that you don't have to come back again and again looking for the same information from that paper. Cool. Any more questions from anyone? Is there anything else? Are you speaking, Padmini?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, go on.
When we complete the review and other things and all, when we come to the conclusion part, will it be feasible for everybody to give a proper conclusion for our research article? Because day by day, the thing is going on. If we take an act or something else, the act has been amended day by day. So when we have a conclusion in our research paper, it will be, I think, I felt there will be some differences for new implementing act or amendments act.
Okay, so I think this is a very specific question, I guess, for the legal industry or legal sector.
Yeah.
Or law, or corporate law, corporate governance, where you are kind of it relies heavily on the specific act or a law. So the best way to handle that is you could do it two ways. Yeah. One is you can say that you have done this research in this time frame, say January to July 2019. Yeah. So the conclusions that you derive could be considering that context, that time frame. Yeah. So that is one approach. So you can make it very clear that after July 2019, there was an act that was introduced and which may make the results or the findings from our article vary. But you are upfront and very clear that we know that this has happened. The other option is you have done your research and then a change or act comes in the picture. You could then say that you can then probably spend some more time to see what effect it has had on your research. And if it is minor or negligible impact, then you could say, you can still report your finding, and within the conclusion, you can mention that the act has changed and it may have some impact on our findings. So I think those would be the two ways I would suggest to handle that situation.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. I have a clear idea now. I am doing my research work in legal field also. So thank you so much.
Okay, cool. Any other questions you have? No? Okay. Anybody else?
My last question, Prof.
Yeah, go on.
Okay. Is it appropriate for PhD student doing research like a systematic review for PhD thesis? Is it okay for PhD student doing systematic review?
Okay, so the question is whether it is appropriate for PhD students to do a systematic literature review. I would say yes, why not? I mean, that is, your whole PhD is based upon that systematic literature review. So if I have to give you an analogy for this situation, is if you are going to build a new house and the slab of the house is weak, the house will collapse. So literature review, doing the literature review is kind of building that base and a very strong footing on which your research will stand. So definitely all PhD students have to have a strong literature review paper published for this, and it is one of the core things that you have to achieve for your PhD. There is no option, no choice. So yeah, I think we are closing nearly to an hour of this session. What I would appreciate from all of you is if you could give me some idea of what you would like to hear next in the next session. Just leave the message on the WhatsApp group, so it can give me some idea of what I can talk next. Also, tell your friends to join the group and join the session next time when I run it. And my intention behind running this session is just to share my ideas or my experience to researchers who are embarking upon their master's, MPhil, or their PhD. Okay, if you want to listen to some more of my talks, you can also go to my YouTube channel. I will type the link here. That's the link, youtube.com/Vidy Potdar. That's my name. Please subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate that. I'm also going to be live tomorrow evening, tomorrow 6 p.m. Indian time, which is 8:30 Perth time, or Indonesian time is 8:30 p.m. And this would be, this is I'll share the details on the WhatsApp group for you if you want to join. But basically, it is a panel discussion, and the panel is about bridging the gap between academia and industry. So it's very useful for students, current students, and how they can get into industry. Okay, so that's it from my side. I hope you enjoyed this session. It was also first time for me to run something live. I'm also learning. So yeah, thanks. And if there is any suggestions, please share that with me. Okay, thanks a lot, guys. Bye.
Okay, thank you. See you.
See you.